Still so duck and humdrum, stuck in a rut, getting nowhere fast. Humdrum blues, fighting the future and mad at the past. Humdrum blues. Oh, honey, when you ain't got money, then you just can't do as you choose.
Now, did that music make you feel good? I'm Sam Lloyd, host of the Red Chair Life podcast. My next guest is a phenomenal jazz musician. She has performed and recorded with the award-winning Capella jazz ensemble Afro Blue, as well as stars which incidentally are all my favorites, such as Esperanza Spalding, Patti Austin, and Count Basie Jazz Orchestra. She's even shared the stage with the great Cassandra Wilson and performed at the White House. She's also done background vocal music for Yolanda Adams, Chance the Rapper, Common, Kelly Clarkson, and Marc Anthony. Irene Jalenti, welcome to the Red Chair Life.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you. That music there was it's one of those feel-good music that no matter what mood you're in, you just stop and you start. Oh my goodness, goodness. Your background in the jazz world is just phenomenal in terms of what you've done, your accomplishments, the people that you've sang with. Just starting out, how did you get into jazz?
So first of all, I come from a musical family. Everybody in my father's side of the family was or is a musician. And my father always had me listening to different kinds of music, but he grew up, in the 40s and 50s, where the mainstream music, alongside with the Italian music, of course, was jazz, especially, big bands and Nat King Cole, Frank Sinatra, all these kinds of singers, pop music at some point was actually jazz music.
Right.
So, so I remember always listening to this kind of music, and my father is a great singer himself and intuitive player. He didn't study, but he can play anything.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Not self-taught. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And I remember, singing when I was very, very little with them. He would play guitar and he would teach me how to harmonize. But we would sing together, Dream a Little Dream. That's a very famous oldies song from the late 30s, beginning of 40s.
Right.
And yeah, so he got me into listening to jazz. And then as I grew up, it really just kept resonating with me. I love all sorts of music. So I just want to straighten that up. I'm all about music, whatever makes me feel a certain way. But I felt that there was a freedom to jazz that in other styles of music wasn't necessarily there.
Yes.
Like you can change things on the spot, you can make them things up, and it's just so free and as an experience that I really wanted to dig into it and master it as much as possible. And it's a lifetime journey.
Yes, it's now the question that I asked is that most Americans assume that jazz is just a strictly American, music genre. But when I go to Europe, I didn't realize the jazz scene was, I think, in my opinion, in some areas is even greater in terms of, people listening to it than in the US. But is there like a cultural or a slight difference between jazz in Europe and jazz in the US, or are they pretty much the same?
I think just by my own experience, I think that perhaps in Europe, now at this specific time, there is such a high respect for the traditional jazz. So like I see the, uh, here there is it's kind of considered old,
Mm.
right?
Yes, yes,
Especially for the young generation.
Right.
That's what mainly I'm referring to, the young generation, the kids. Jazz is for old folks.
Right.
While in Europe, jazz is fascinating and it's very respected as, a Black traditional music. And I think that there is that desire in Europe to really absorb the style.
Right.
And so a lot of people, um, now they get more into studying jazz. They go to, they just recently added jazz to some conservatories. Not all of them have it
Right.
in Europe. So it's still, although it has been existing forever, it's kind of new.
Okay.
And the new generation really, really loves it. They love the way that the old singers sound and the way that the new singers sound, and they want to learn, they want to know it all.
Right.
While I feel that in the United States, because it's your own music, that is like, we know this, but it makes sense. It makes sense because I think I've experienced the same thing when it comes to Italian popular music.
Okay.
You grew up listening to that. Like, why do you need, like, okay, now we want something new.
Yeah.
I think it's a very natural instinct, especially for young kids.
Yes, it is. It's definitely. And you mentioned something that seems to be a phenomenon going on. You stated that young people are beginning to become more interested in the classical jazz. I'm noticing the same thing here in the U.S. When I say young people, we're talking about maybe between 17 and younger. That a lot of the classic music that I grew up with in the 60s, 70s, what is that song? That sounds great. And they're just like, this is like phenomenal. And I kind of understand it because the music today appears to be just a rehash of the same sound, the same thing. And when you go back into our era, at that point, there are true artists that made their sound distinct from everybody else. And unfortunately, that's being lost in mainstream music right now. So that is incredible, incredible. Now, quick question. What was your transition like? First and foremost, what made you come to the U.S. to study jazz as opposed to staying in Europe? What was your main reason why you came?
I'm gonna answer
the broad
like this.
question.
No. It's actually very specific. Yeah. Actually, I'll just put it this way, and I think it's gonna make a lot of sense.
Okay.
If you want to learn how to make pizza, you would probably go to school in Naples.
Exactly.
Okay. It makes sense, right?
Yes. Spot on.
So, yes, it's true that Europe is really fascinated with this music, but I mean, you just want to go where the music started.
Yeah.
Where it all started, to me, makes a lot of sense. And then you go and you explore other things. But it's important to be true to the origins of something.
Yeah. Wow.
And yeah.
So what was that transition like, coming from Italy, being formally trained within a jazz musician, and coming to the U.S. and just experience some of the greats in terms of where it originated? Was there a transition where it was difficult, or was it like, boom, I'm in heaven?
Well, first of all, I want to specify that when I was in Italy, I didn't study jazz.
Okay.
I just went to like a couple of workshops.
Oh, okay.
But nothing like that. Like I actually studied since I was 5 years old, classical piano. So got nothing to do with jazz.
5 years old.
And, yeah, and I'll tell you how that happened is that my brother is 4 years older than me, and my parents got my brother to study piano. And so they bought a piano, and of course he got bored with it.
Yeah.
And they were like, well, we have this piano, so they told me, now you're going to study piano. And I was like, okay, so I guess I don't have a choice. And which was great, it worked out eventually. But so when I was in Italy, I didn't have a academic formation in terms
Okay.
of like, background for jazz music, except for these couple of master classes that I followed.
Right.
But I had the school of experience. I had I was fortunate enough that when I was about 19, I joined a group of experienced, more
Mm,
experienced musicians, and we were
mm,
doing rhythm and blues and soul, that kind of stuff. But one of the members was a great, and still is a great saxophone player, and he was like, you know what, I need you to do something jazz because I think it's gonna work out. And so while we were playing soul and rhythm and blues, he would play some melodies and have me repeating them. So I started improvising, just repeating what he was doing, which is a old school because
right.
until maybe 15 years ago there was no school of jazz in the United States either.
Right.
So 15, 20 years ago. So it is a call and response kind of music. It is an experience that you do on stage. um, but there's also a lot to learn, so you need to have some guidance. So when I came to the United States, it was challenging, of course, because then everything that I was doing intuitively, now I
Mhm.
had to analyze it, and I had to break down harmonies, and I had
Ah, okay.
to break down, all the theory behind music in general and jazz theory,
Right.
and learn, some licks and patterns, and transcribe a lot of solos so that you get the language and the vocabulary. It's a lot of work
Yeah.
because people think it's all on the spot, but it's a long, as I said before, it's a lifetime studying
So
and
it's like a science
practicing.
behind it, but it never ends.
Yeah, because it is like you have, when you go there and you get to the place of being on stage, you have to let go and you have to be creative and inventive and just the let the energy flow out of you. But before you do that, at home, you just gotta study, and there's
Yeah.
nothing creative about that moment of practice.
Right.
Creativity comes after, when you go on stage, but before that, it's
You
very
need to
systematic.
right.
And so it was like, okay, I had to adjust the way that I was doing things. I had to be more rational in order for then being free, but with the right vocabulary, with the
Right.
right musical vocabulary when I was performing.
Ah, okay. Wow. That's now you went to it's like one of the jazz, Howard School. What was that experience like?
Howard
Yeah,
University.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yes.
yeah. Yeah, I did my master's there. It was great.
Oh, really?
It was one of the
Wow.
best experiences of my life. I loved everybody there. Everybody loved me, thank God. And I, I had amazing teachers, like my voice teacher and choir director, Miss Kanatra Miller, is just a genius of music. She's an amazing arranger and composer, a fantastic pianist, and just knows everything about the voice. So she helped me, with my voice technique as well, which I didn't know much about before. Um, and then I got to study some piano with Cyrus Chestnut, who's a
Oh, really?
yes, yeah, he's a faculty there.
Oh, oh my God.
So,
Wow.
just
Okay.
being in the same room with him and
Yeah.
he's showing you things on the piano, you're just like, oh my God, how can I become you?
Oh, that would have been awesome. Oh
Oh,
my.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And did you get a chance to do any type of recordings or videotape during this these lessons, or is it all just based on memory, I guess?
Well, I do have some audio recordings because, of course, you want to make sure when you go
Yeah.
to a lesson that you don't
Yeah.
forget things. And I have a bunch of notes and handouts that he gave me.
Oh man, save that. That's gonna be a treasure trove right there.
Oh, yeah, no, no, he's a legend.
Now, based on that, like on some of your bio, that you actually was on stage with Cassandra Wilson, which is one of my favorites that I grew up with, within my family. But what was that experience like? I mean, just being around this woman and just being at the same place on a phenomenal singer that she's been for years. But what was that experience like?
Well, let me give you a little background. First of all, the whole thing is like a surreal dream for me still today because it happened in New York at the
Yeah.
Apollo Theater, which is nothing more legendary than that.
That's like
Okay, so let's
the
start.
premiere. If you're on there, you've made it.
Let's start that we're at the Apollo, and we were
Wow.
celebrating the 100th birthday of Ella Fitzgerald.
Okay.
So they organized this big concert for Ella,
Right.
and two of my favorite women in jazz ever were there. Cassandra Wilson and Liz Wright. Liz Wright is about my age. I love her
No,
so much.
really?
Yes.
Oh.
And I was privileged not only to just walk the same stage, which is crazy,
Yeah.
but to actually talk to both of them for a while, because I was still in school and I was doing a paper. And so I interviewed Liz Wright for my paper, and it was extremely inspiring. So I spent like about an hour just talking to her and trying to absorb her magnificent energy. She has
Yeah.
this aura that's just like, just incredible. And then after the concert, um, I timidly knocked at Cassandra Wilson's door.
Really?
Because for we rehearsed for a couple of days
Yeah.
at the Apollo before, because it was a whole production.
Okay.
And so I crossed her, but I was like, oh my God, I can't, I
Yeah.
can't just bug her. And then when we were on the stairs, I remember she looked at me, she said hi, and she winked. I was like, okay, I'm going to talk to her.
Oh.
This is my woman.
Okay.
And so I knocked at the dressing room, at her green room, and she was so graceful. We started talking, and it was just a surreal experience, because she is a legend herself,
Yes.
and she's played with the legends that are no
Yes.
longer with us.
That's
So
right.
it's like you there talking to this woman who has experienced everything, and knows everything about this music. So it was absolutely incredible. And actually, the other night I was scrolling through my Google photo
Yeah.
folder,
Yeah.
and I bumped into the picture that I took with her
Yeah.
afterwards, and I was like, wow, I can't believe that really happened. It was just surreal. I can't believe it. And the same night, we actually performed with Patti Austin, which is another
Yeah. That another
legend.
thing too.
It's like the whole
It's like
thing was like, okay. And it was extremely humbling, because for the whole time I was like, do I deserve to be here? Like, why am I here? Like, are we sure that this is right? It doesn't, I don't know if
right.
this feels right. It's like, it feels right to me, but is it
Yeah.
right? It's like, it was amazing. And to see these women so humble
I
and
mean,
so down to earth
yeah.
just really tells you, um, to me, the true musicians, the true legends
Yes.
have always been the simplest, humble, more, down to earth people.
Yeah.
That's my own personal experience for all the musicians that I learned, that I met.
That idea. That's my experience too. I mean, I have not met all the greats like you, but the few musicians that I've met, it's the same thing. When you meet them face to face, these people are so humble. They're so laid back. Kind of a little bit different. I've met like some of the main big pop artists, stuff like that, just completely opposite of the mainstream stuff. I mean, total opposite.
I can't.
And yeah, it's I met a few, there's a few like mainstream pop songs, but when you meet the person, it is just like, okay.
But not all of them, because I gotta be honest.
No, yeah,
When I met Kelly Clarkson,
yeah.
she was like the coolest
But just
person I've ever
bubbly,
met
yeah.
in
She
my
does
life.
it. Like, is she like always bubbly? I mean, when I see her on most of the things, she's
She's
all full
bubbly.
of
She
energy
is
and just like,
full of energy. She's
yeah.
hilarious, by the way.
Oh,
She's
really?
super funny. No, she is. I was like, okay now. She came in, and then, when we were rehearsing with her,
Yeah.
she came, and she was like the one that was saying, yo guys, I'm sorry, I'm probably gonna mess up everything. It was like, you
Really?
Kelly Clarkson, like, we love you. Like, what you talking about? Like, it's like, oh, y'all sound great, man. I don't know if I
No,
can
right.
sing with you. I was like, what you talking about? She was amazing, amazing,
Oh, that
amazing.
must be
So,
an experience. Okay.
mhm.
Now,
So it's not everybody, like
yeah,
in life, you meet the musicians that have a good attitude and they're
dude,
really
yeah.
humble, and the musicians that they're not even made it yet, and they think that they made it. But that's in every style of
Yeah,
music,
yeah, yeah, it
any
is. It
generation.
is. It is definitely. I mean, one of the things like the one thing I like about jazz is that it's one of the few music genres that you can just like impromptu walk in and you just start something out of clear blue sky. Like one of my profound experience, I'm trying to remember where I was at. There was a jazz group that was was it in Houston? But Joe Sample walked in. He walked in, and I looked at him. I was like, no, no, that is him. And he sat down, and we it was drinking, eating, and it was enjoying jazz set. It was it was local group, and they stopped in the middle of the thing and asked him, "Hey, you want to come up here and perform?" Said, "Why not?" The man walked up there, and that night, everything was impromptu. I mean, I was just blown away at you just like, and it's one of those things where it's not just tunes. I mean, you feel it, on the spot, impromptu, and people, jazz is one of the few genres that I've experienced that provides that feeling of on the spot, and you can create any type of emotion. But what was your most vivid experience in terms of, besides Cassandra, in terms of where you got into a situation like a live on stage and you just let it loose? I mean, it wasn't even rehearsed. You just let yourself loose.
Well, that happens all the time.
Oh, that's
Like when you do, yeah, no. Like let's well, first of all, when you do jazz music, one of the ways that you interact with musicians and you get to know people and you get your experience done is by going to jam sessions. And what a jam session is literally playing with people you've never met before,
yeah,
and just on the spot. Sometimes most of the times you just call standards.
okay,
You call tunes that everybody knows. You determine a key
yeah,
and a feel and a tempo, and you start playing.
yes,
So, the only thing that you have set up is pretty much the structure of the song. Like, that's the melody and you know what the chords are.
right,
But then everything that happens there is going to be on the spot.
yeah.
So
I don't know
what
how
he
you do
did,
that.
but that's the part of what I told you before. That's the
Yeah,
preparation at home, so
yeah,
that you're ready
it's
for these kinds of things.
right.
You're ready for these kinds of things, and of course, you go in a club, and out of the blue, Joe Samples walks
Yeah,
in, and he starts playing. I mean, it's gonna be easy because it's great. It's like laying on a very comfortable mattress.
yeah. I guess so.
Baby,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. But for me, I was just like, oh my god. It's like,
And you're gonna love this. I actually met him.
oh, did
He
you?
he yeah, you're gonna love this story. He In Italy, in the region where I'm from, Umbria, we have one of the most important jazz festivals in the world, which is
Mm.
Umbria Jazz. And in 2008 eight or nine, something like that, Joe Sample was playing, and I had the luck to know a drummer
Uh-huh.
that was also touring during the festival. And I was like, man, I really want to meet Joe Sample. So he's
Yeah.
like, okay, I'll let you come in the backstage. I was like, yo, he got the pass. He got the pass. The crazy thing is that not only there was Joe Sample, but Randy Crawford was on the gig too. And I got to meet both. And
Oh,
again,
wow. Wow.
again, humble, down to earth. I got the picture. I was like, I can't believe this. And she got this big old smile,
Yeah.
and he was super nice. I mean, it was just unbelievable. Just to
Wow.
just to shake their hand, say, I love you so much. You
Yeah,
mean so
just
much
like
to
you.
me.
I mean, that's what I felt like when I saw Joe Sample. He was just. It's just amazing how, like, people like Joe Sample, Cassandra Wilson, whatever. I mean, you can play their song in hundreds of other of the mainstream songs, and you can hear their distinct sound. I mean, there's absolutely
Mhm.
no confusion about, is it this? No, it's like boom. But
Yeah,
Joe Sample, wow. Okay,
yeah.
okay, that is pretty amazing. Now, one of the things that found interesting is that you worked with some famous rappers like Common and Chance. How did that collaboration come about? Because classical jazz and rap, sometimes it's like, okay, it's somewhat, but it's like they're like two opposing dichotomy, on opposite sides. But how did that come about?
So there are two different stories. So they are connected by the fact that I was in the Afro Blue ensemble.
Okay.
So we had the highest privilege to be called to perform for the last Christmas tree lighting with former President Barack Obama at
Okay.
the White House.
Okay.
So they do this ceremony where they light the Christmas tree and they have music. So we got called to do backgrounds for Kelly Clarkson, Yolanda Adams, Marc Anthony, and Chance the Rapper was one of the people that were performing there.
Okay.
And with them, it was very easy because his style of music is very rooted to the roots of Black music.
Okay.
So there's a lot of gospel, soul,
Right.
and rhythm and blues and jazz, and it's just all of these things.
Right.
It's just they are all related, the cousins.
Right.
And so it was very, very natural to do that. Uh, and it was great. He's amazing. He's
Yeah.
really, really amazing. And then for what concerns Common, we were actually performing at a Howard University gala, just a fundraiser,
Okay.
and Common was there. He
Okay.
was there, and he was just there to encourage people to donate money to the school. So we, as Afro Blue, we performed a couple of songs, and after we performed, he went to our director, was like, do you think we could do something together real quick? And we are like,
On the
okay.
spot?
Yes.
Really?
So yeah, so he said, okay, why don't we do Glory? And
Okay.
then we were like, okay. So all of us, we went in the green room and we started working on a quick arrangement of the song.
Okay.
So we determined, okay, we're gonna do this, you're gonna do that. Okay, let's try. And we learned, how the harmony goes, and we just put together a quick arrangement in
Yeah.
about 20 minutes. So he came back, then he
Amazing.
came in the room and we tried it together, and he was like, oh yeah, this works. And we went on stage and we did it. That was it.
Now, is there a recording of this? Because
Not official
an
recording.
official, I'll have
No.
to check it out on YouTube. Maybe somebody posted on YouTube. I mean, those are the things that I just find amazing. How you know
I can
within
send you a little bit of when we were rehearsing.
a rehearsing. Okay, awesome. If you could do that, I'd like to share that with our listeners. That'd be really really. So now, you've done a lot of background voices for famous artists. Now, in terms of your experience, what's the most memorable where you did the background sound for whoever the whoever the case might be? What's one of your most memorable experiences?
I mean, they're all memorable to me because they're different. I think this one with Common was memorable because it was like on the spot.
But yeah,
Nobody was emotionally ready for that. I wasn't emotional. So it was I remember the night when I was going back home, I was on the bus and I couldn't stop listening to the rehearsal that we did, and it just made me so happy. But then at the same time, when I think about, performing in front of Barack Obama with
yeah,
all these wonderful musicians, and they're all legends in their all way, is like I can't decide which one. Doing background at the Apollo for Patti Austin, it's like
right.
it's not like you can't really pick one because they're all great
Okay,
experiences
that's
that I hope I could experience every other day. Be honest with you.
yeah. Well, what your experiences in terms of just the people that you've encountered is, that's probably had the population's dream of having an opportunity to meet some of the greats that you have. So yeah, you're absolutely right. Now, one of the interesting things that I've noticed with people in general, like people's perception of great musicians like you and all the other greats, like Cassandra Wilson, they assume that. These people they have constant passion, they have constant direction their entire life. And one of the questions that I'd ask, can you describe a period in your life where you could not find your purpose and lacked passion? And your response is very, very interesting. Can you kind of expound on that? Because it kind of cut me off. I was like, you know what? She's right. Can you provide that in more detail?
I mean, it's pretty much every other day, if not every day. I mean, it's hard not to get into that dark place
Yeah.
in which you wonder, did I make the right move? Did I choose the right place to be? Did I choose the right profession? Am
Yeah.
I strong enough for it? Am I good enough for it? There's a lot that's involved when you do art, because this is what happens when you start doing any source of arts. Is It's because it's an emotional need. You need to let something out. It's
Yes.
just love and passion. That's all it is.
Okay.
When it becomes your profession, everything changes, because then you're not just singing or painting or doing anything else just because you feel something in that moment.
Right.
You are doing it because you're giving a service,
Ah, okay.
right?
Okay.
We're given something,
Right.
and sometimes, because this has become such a lucrative business,
Mhm.
you can get lost. You can get lost in that.
Okay.
You can get lost, and you get very self-conscious. You see, I'm stepping on 40. So you start looking all these young girls that
Mhm.
are given so many opportunities, and you wonder, oh, did I wait too long?
Yeah.
Am I too old?
Right.
Is the way that I'm singing not modern or challenging or enough for people to wanting to stick with me, or for somebody to invest in me? So you start wondering a lot of things that get in the way of who you are, why you're doing this,
Okay.
and your creative process and the true passion. So I'm just going to give you an example. One thing that we do as professionals, you got to make money. That's my living. I don't do anything else. I
Right.
don't do anything on the side.
Right.
And so because it's a profession, you start doing things like restaurant gigs, just regular restaurant gigs. You
Okay.
play background for people.
Right.
And it's good at the beginning, because you think, okay, this is a way for me to practice. I can do this. I can make good money. And then at some point, I was like, you know what? This is like 150 people in this restaurant,
Right.
and nobody's listening.
Yeah.
They hear that I'm here, but nobody's acknowledging what I'm doing. And
Right.
only like few people come up and say something. And I'm like, I'm here like doing this. That for me was a moment in which I was like, you know what? Am I going to be more frugal?
Right.
Am I going to starve a little bit? I don't care. But this is not making me going anywhere. This is not
Ah, okay.
helping my
Okay.
artistry to move forward. This is not inspiring me. This is not
Okay.
inspiring me. When I go back home, I feel empty. And
Okay.
when I have to go to the gig, I don't want to go. And that's never a feeling that anybody should experience.
That's
If you
right.
don't
Okay.
love being, because there are people that I know, they have been doing restaurant gigs for 40 years. They love it.
Yeah.
They love it. They just love it. And it's great.
Yeah.
And I think it's great, because if that's your purpose, if you love just giving that atmosphere to somebody,
Yeah.
allowing like a couple to have a good atmosphere while they're at the
Yeah.
first date, or playing happy birthdays to somebody who is celebrating, that's great.
Yeah.
But I acknowledged that it wasn't for me, and so I had to
Right.
make a switch, because you just have to realize what makes you happy and
Ah,
what
okay.
not,
Okay.
so that you don't get stuck, because it got me stuck in a creative block for years.
Now, I have to ask you a question. I know I assume that you've worked at some point in time with record labels, and when that comes about, have you ever been into a situation where they try to force their idea of what you should sound like, or have you been in the realm where this is my style, this is what I do, this is my sound? Do you lose yourself in terms of the commercial aspect of it, where people are trying to force you to do a certain genre as opposed to what you want to do?
Not really with labels. What
Yeah.
happened to me with one label was different, and I think
Okay.
it was more painful. I
Really?
was
Okay.
started to work with a producer, and he was like, was very, very intrigued by me, my style, what I was doing, and I went to a city. I went to the north of Italy to work with this person, and We worked at his home studio for like 3 days, 4 days, I don't remember. And we created things like, we came up with ideas. So it was like, oh, this is great. This is I felt very inspired when I went back home. And then he disappeared, right?
Hmm.
So I'm like, okay. So I'm sending an email, sending another one, trying to call, nothing. Maybe like 2 months later, something like that. Finally, he calls me and it's like, oh, I'm sorry, I've been, MIA or whatever. Me and my partner, we just think your voice is too deep, is not marketable enough.
Oh,
Is not marketable
wow.
enough.
That is
And like somebody tells you, it's like you have to understand,
yeah.
you are born with something and somebody tells you that that thing that you're born with and that you got no power over is not good enough for the public. Basically, we can't sell you. That's what he was saying. We
That's
don't think you
like
would sell.
right in the heart.
Man, these kinds
Wow.
of things, they, all when you accumulate all these kinds of experiences,
Yes.
there's no way they don't they don't attack your soul, your inspiration, and your passion. Because you self-question, you start questioning yourself
Self, yeah.
too much.
Yes.
It's a lot of like, maybe this is not for me.
Right.
And it got me into a dark hole for the longest. I got
Really?
I got out of the hole, man. It took me, yeah, I was still singing, but it was like, yeah, I'll just stay here in my little hometown and do weddings and things like that. It took me a while to actually say, you know what, F it. I
Yeah.
wanna change it. I wanna do something about this because being here and doing these local
Yeah.
things is not fulfilling my soul. I wanna try it.
Right.
I'm still capable of trying at least. But
Wow.
those things really hit you. Those
Yeah.
things really hit you because especially, as a woman, you already grow up with a lot of insecurities.
Right.
Your
Yes.
body, the way you are, the way people perceive you, all these labels that as a woman you get. And then life experiences just keep piling up.
But right.
You're like, okay, now, okay, now give me a break.
And that's a crazy thing, like your experience. People don't realize how powerful just a few words, can mean in terms of determining your self-worth. I mean, this person, is a total stranger, whatever. I mean, just a few words can just completely destroy a person's value themselves, and it's just crazy. But then through your experience, you get to the point when you get out of that, you realize, no, this is me.
You you have to, you have to, you have to. I
Yeah,
mean, I have so many stories. This is just one of them. Trust me, I have
yeah,
so many stories. But at some point, you have to work on yourself and understand, okay, why am I unhappy? What is making me unhappy? Why can't I love myself? Like, what can I do to change this feeling? And that's when you start digging into these stories and you're like, oh, that's why,
yeah. It's amazing, through life. Like, one of the questions I asked, is about fear. Fear in most cases is generated by your viewpoint, what other people think. And in your experience, I mean, have you overcome this, or in terms of fear, or how do you go through your life of overcoming fear and self-doubt about who you are?
That's rough. That's a work in progress. I always care about what people think. I mean, there are some things that I don't care what they think about, but there are others when it comes to my art that I really care about. I understand that not everybody's going to love me
Yeah.
because not everybody loves everybody. When I
Right.
go on YouTube and I click on a Ella Fitzgerald video or Stevie Wonder video and I see dislikes, I'm like, what's wrong with
Only
you?
people, right?
Like, how is this even possible? I remember, my father he has a music store. I worked in my father's store since I was 13, selling records and CDs and music and, instruments. And I remember so vividly a lady, she came and she was like, I want to buy a Christmas present for a friend, and this person loves jazz music, especially singers. And I'm like, oh, how about this collection of these rare recordings by Ella Fitzgerald?
Yeah.
And she said, I don't like Ella Fitzgerald. And I
You're
I
like,
had to I had to bite my tongue because I was like, I can't
yeah.
say what I feel right now.
Now that's a quick question. I know in that genre, like, how do you deal with the haters and and your critics? Because I'm sure, in your business, it's just a continual inflow. How do you deal with these people like that?
I
All right, take a deep breath. Take a
well,
deep
I'm gonna
breath.
tell you what it is. Some things just go like this. Some
Yeah,
things that just they don't even whatever.
yeah.
Other things hurt. So the things that I think I'm very fortunate about, the kind of personality that I have, I get very depressed.
Really?
But yeah, I get very sad by these things. They really hurt me. But my system works amazingly. I'm telling you, I can't stay sad or depressed for more than 2 to 3 days. It
Okay,
never
okay,
happens.
okay.
Like I go down and I'm very sad. And I'm
Yeah.
like, and then it's something always clicks in me and is like, all right, now snap out of it. It's time to go back to what you're supposed to do. So I have like it's like my immune system really works for
Yeah.
sadness and melancholic, feelings. And so it just automatically on its own gets me back in shape, gets
Ah,
me back
okay.
to like, okay, so all right, whatever, this didn't work. Why didn't this work? Why this musician didn't like what I did? Why this other person doesn't call me for the perform, for gigs?
Right.
Why, that person wrote that comment on the thing? Well, maybe they just don't like it, or
Yeah.
maybe I did something. So I start saying, okay, how can I get myself better? Like, how can I
Right.
make myself better? What should I work more on? What can I improve to not get stagnating and just have a better musicianship that is going to slim down the possibility of somebody to not appreciate what I do,
Yeah.
something like that. So my way to deal with it is that my system just tells me snap out of it.
Ah,
It
okay. Okay.
does. And I know that I have all the tools that I need to get out of it. A good call with a friend. I know who are my friends
Okay.
that can help me,
Okay.
right? I know who to call right away. I know that person is going to have an advice. If that
Okay.
person doesn't have it, it's still good for me to talk about it. And I can call this other person. Those people, you need to know who you people are, who the right people
Okay.
that give you the
Okay.
right energy are, because I know this person is going to give me good advice. This other person, they have more negative.
Yeah.
They're still great people, but they have more of a negative way to see things. I
Yeah.
need somebody more
It's
reactive,
positive.
more
Right.
positive.
Okay.
And I got friends and I got all the books that I need, all the readings that I need to get myself back in shape.
Okay.
So, I think it's important to um, just be aware of the tools that you can use when you go down, when you go low, to get yourself back
So
up.
back up. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And, post-its are great. Post-its,
Really? So what do? You
right?
like a positive affirmations or
Yeah, some things that
really?
that you want to remember, or events that you want to remember, pictures that you want to have there to give
Okay.
you help. Like, it's not, we all know about vision boards and
Yeah.
they're great to
Good. Yeah.
future inspiration and
Right.
visualization. But then when it's about like today and the present, you want to make sure that you remember your past and what things make you feel good, you know?
Okay. Okay. I might have to
So
start doing that. Okay.
yeah, no, it really works. It really, really
Okay.
works. You see it, and even if in that moment it's like, I don't feel this right now, it lingers in your mind.
Yeah,
If
that's a problem that I have. Like my wife has, and she's correct. I tend to, especially with the situation going on with the coronavirus and stuff like that. I'm not getting depressed, but I start listening to news and I start imagining the worst of the worst of the worst. And she's telling me, stop that. You got to think positive, be around positive people. And it's like, but what you're stating is so true, because when you let those negative people in, it just continues to drag you down, and the energy. I can't explain it, but people exude energy. They don't have to say a word. You walk in, and if it's a negative person, I mean, you can feel it.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the things that I'm becoming more and more aware of. But it's interesting from your perspective in the music world, because you encounter many people, on a daily basis, and some of your haters and all that stuff, constant basis. So it's interesting how you deal with it. But the key thing is you're telling me that you do go down for a few days. And I tell people, that's a normal reaction, for somebody to come out here and tell me that if you don't feel bad about it, it's like, wait a minute, you're either hiding or something.
Let me tell you this other thing. I think that for me, and maybe it's a masochistic thing, it's important to go down because we as artists, we grab onto our emotions. We need to feel something.
Okay.
So sadness is very highly inspired,
Yeah.
and sometimes it can be dangerous because when for a musician that sadness is the main inspiration, they keep subconsciously going to get that feeling. They try to find that man that's gonna make them feel bad, that's gonna leave them in cheat. That person that's triggering anger, because sometimes people, they need anger to improvise, to create something. So I am aware of that, and I think that for me also, sadness, it has a highly inspiring moment. Is that I know that it's not a healthy place to stay in, and so I get out of it. But when that happens, man, I try to grab onto what I'm feeling and write down what I'm feeling, because it might trigger something. It might trigger a great song. It might trigger a nice painting. I don't know, whatever it comes out, a poem, whatever comes out that might not ever go out to the public, but it's a outlet for me. So I think I embrace sadness. I embrace depression as much as I embrace a good feeling of walking out in the sun and going to the beach and lay down and tan. You know, I'm Italian, I like to tan. and the joy of a good meal with a friend, a nice chat and laughing, to cry. I embrace every emotion. I think we shouldn't be afraid and scared of fear, of depression and sadness. Those are human feelings. We need them. Otherwise, if we always happy, trust me, we don't feel happiness. There's no way you feel happy, because you don't have a low point. If you don't have a low point, how are you going to know when you're actually at the happiest? You don't know. We've been given the gift of feeling emotions. So why not just embracing them in a healthy way? As long as it's healthy, why not?
That's the key thing. That is a key thing. But you're spot on in terms of we have to go through these life emotions, because as you stated, if you don't know what happiness is. You don't know what joy is until you feel that level. So, but the thing that's so weird about my observation in the music world is that there's been I forgot the lady's name. Amy Winehouse. She, and you listen to her lyrics, and it's just, and you see this trend where you're staying in that low point just based on her lyrics, and some people just can't handle it. But is that something that you see a lot with music artists in your industry, where they get kind of lulled into this state that, for whatever reason, they just cannot get out of it, and you can hear it in their lyrics and their music?
I mean, yes, I definitely can see when I can definitely think about a few people that stay in that place, and they definitely, they exuberate that thing through their art. But at the same time, I meet so many regular people that are not artists or musicians, that they have the same thing. They're just expressing differently. I have few friends that I'm like, you need to get out of this place. Why do you always find the negative about everything? Why can't you, okay, you ran out of, I don't know, Nutella. Okay, that's fine. But the great thing is that you got money to buy it and you can get it. Or, just the simplest things that they can potentially upset you, but on such a superficial level that they shouldn't get you mad,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it is part of the music world, but I think that most of it all is just part of the human nature. Is
Yeah.
because some people don't feel comfortable in dealing with their issues, with being humble and understand, okay, I might need to go and talk to somebody. I might need to deal with this. I think I have a problem. I think this is not fine. Just realizing that you're not perfect and then you have a problem, it's so hard.
Yeah.
It's too hard. It's very vulnerable. It's very, very vulnerable, especially for men, I say.
Oh.
Mhm.
Yes.
I'm going to be shading, but that's the truth.
Yes, you're Irene, you're absolutely right about that. That's one of the things that my wife and I are currently going through. But yes,
Yeah, because you know
but
what? Mainly because what you said before, it really made me think. I have a lot of friends and they have the same issue, Italian
yes,
women friend
yeah,
that are coupled with American men,
right,
and doing this coronavirus thing is like, you guys got no idea how to deal with it.
yeah,
It's like, and I don't know if it's a cultural thing, if in the United States there's like this detachment to really know from a male perspective how to not always be alpha, always in control of
yeah, yeah,
situations, just to let go and let things happen and just lay back and wait for things to change.
yeah.
It's just the acceptance of, I got no power over these things,
That
over this
key,
thing.
that is the thing that my wife got
And what
on me.
can you
Says, like,
do?
quit worried about it. You have no control over it, you know.
There's no control. So you know what you got control of yourself.
Yeah,
Use, like for me, like I've always, like I say, use this time to dig into whatever is going on
yeah,
with you. Get yourself in shape. I don't know,
yeah,
the
right.
COVID, the COVID-19 body workout, these kinds of things. Read, get yourself into things
Yeah,
that before these happened, you were like, I wish I had the time to do
yeah,
that. Now
yes.
you got the time, you got
No, no,
plenty
no. It's
of
like,
it.
no, I want to get back. I mean, it's Irene. It is so crazy how we're just at extremes. You know, when we don't have the time, we're always wishing that we had. And when we have the time, it's just like we want to go back to the same crap that we were, it's stressed out. It doesn't make sense. But again, like you said, it's human nature. I mean, it's just we're conditioned into thinking this way. But that's one of the things that was definitely interesting, is that this coronavirus situation has definitely created a between relationships, couples and people's opinion of left and right. It's gotten to the point where it's people need to kind of sit back and just look, just stop.
Hmm.
The situation will roll out. Just stop and enjoy the moment right now, and enjoy your time with family. Enjoy this free time that you have. But no, it's people this side or that side. Just amazing.
Yeah, yeah,
Now,
and absolutely turning off the news. That's the best thing.
oh goodness,
Haven't watched them in 3-4 weeks.
I
I
haven't
just,
watched
what
it.
I check? I
Yeah,
check if I can go out,
yeah,
when the stores are gonna open again, if I
right.
gotta wear a mask or not. Like I just check what matters to my life, because
Life,
I
yeah.
can't, it's overwhelming.
Oh, it is. It
Gotta
is.
filter it.
I don't know how these people watch this stuff on a continual basis. I just like, okay, stop. But it's about time here. I want to ask you one question, just based on your, your profound experience in the musical world, the people that you've met, the interactions. What's a prominent life lesson that you would like to give to our listeners in terms of your experience being a musician?
Just honestly, just be open to learning new things, and just know that you don't know it all. And there's so much in life that's to learn in music and life. And be open to criticisms and be humble, and let people give you advice. Be
Okay.
open to advice. Don't, there's too much to learn in life and music uh, that needs to be learned. And so why not let's just allow people to give us advice. Now, of course, filter what's good and applicable for you or not. But in the
Yeah.
meantime, just be open to learn and to become better. That's it.
Ah, that is awesome. Awesome. Well, one of the things I think you had mentioned that you're going to be having a live stream May 22nd. What is that about?
Yeah, I'm gonna do a performance So a pianist I work with a lot, his name is Alan Blackman, and we are going to this Baltimore-based venue called Andy Music.
Okay.
And it's going to be just the two of us on stage,
Really?
and,
Okay.
a cameraman, no audience.
Okay.
And we're going to do a live stream of a show, and it's $5. Is very, very simple and convenient, you know.
Okay.
And you just tune in, as you know, depending on where you're locating in the country, and you can watch this concert. So we're gonna give a full concert, imagining that there are people, because they're gonna be on the other side of the screen. So we gotta imagine the clapping, and gonna imagine that they like what we do. But it's gonna be just a concert from this really, really historical venue in Baltimore.
Okay. Send me the link and I'll put it on my Facebook and Instagram site. But yeah, I will definitely sign in, because I'm the whole reason when I heard your music the first time, it was just right in the middle. You just stop and you're like, man, this sounds really, really good. So for my listeners out there, if you get a chance, get on her Instagram site, just listen to some of the recordings. I mean, in Facebook, it's just you have to stop and just go and enjoy the moment.
Please.
All right, Irene. Well, really, really appreciate you taking the time for this interview, and I think we'll be coming back, crossing paths very, very soon, because your talent is just mesmerizing.
Thank you. Thank you.
One of the things that I normally do with my podcast guests is that I ask them a question in terms of if they had a theme song that represented who they are. And at the end of the podcast interview, I normally play the song, but my opinion for this situation is completely inappropriate, because why? The source of the music is right here. So that being said, can you play something just impromptu that just, for the next minute, so our listeners can just really understand how I felt this feeling when I first heard your music?
So I come up with something right on the spot.
Okay. Yes.
So
live impromptu, folks. All right. This is talent.
Let me think. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, dun, dun. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, dun, dun. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. Sitting there, sitting by it,
Wow, that was incredible.
Let me
That was
save this
incredible.
one.
All
Let me
right.
save it.
I'm going to record that, and it'll be the #1 hit next week. All right. This little snippet. All right, Irene.
Thank
Really
you.
appreciate your time. This was an awesome, awesome interview. I mean, I'm kind of jealous of all the experiences that you've gone through, because these are some of the famous, artists that I grew up with, and I would have died like meeting Cassandra in person. Oh, my mom found out. Is like,
And I still don't have all the experiences that I want.
yeah,
I
no,
still haven't gone through them.
yeah, it's called life. I mean, the experiences should never stop. As long as you're breathing, you have to go through, experiences, whether it's up or down. So, but thank you very much for your time, and look forward to having this follow-up thing again, which I'm sure we will very soon.
Thank you. Have a
Thank you
good
very
day.
much. Thank you.